Imagine stepping off a plane, tired from a long flight, only to realize that the world you just landed in is not the world you left. Imagine handing over your passport, a document you've used dozens of times, and having the officer look at you as if you've just handed him a piece of paper from a fairy tale. This is not a dream. This is not a movie. This is the terrifying reality of a man who landed in Tokyo in 1954, coming from a country that, according to every map on Earth, simply does not exist. The sun was beating down on Haneda Airport when he arrived. He was a man of business, impeccably dressed, carrying a briefcase that suggested a life of routine and professional success. He spoke French as his primary language, but he was also fluent in Japanese and several other European tongues. To the customs officers, he seemed perfectly normal until they opened his passport. The gold-embossed letters on the cover read, "The Kingdom of Taured." The officers exchanged confused glances. They had never heard of Taured. They checked their digital records, their physical ledgers, and their memory of world geography. Nothing. When they told the man they didn't recognize his country, he didn't look like a criminal caught in a lie. He looked genuinely insulted. He looked like a man whose very identity was being erased in real time. Taured has existed for over 1,000 years, he argued, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. They brought out a world map and asked him to point to his home. Without a second of hesitation, he pointed to the border between France and Spain, but his finger landed directly on the small principality of Andorra. When the officers told him that the land was called Andorra, the man nearly collapsed. He had never heard of Andorra. He insisted that where Andorra stood, his great nation of Taured had thrived for centuries. The mystery only deepened as they searched his belongings. He carried legal currency from several European countries, but he also had checkbooks from a bank no one had ever heard of. His workplace in Tokyo, where he claimed to be headed for a meeting, had no record of him. The hotel he claimed to have a reservation at had no such name in their books. And yet, his passport was filled with authentic-looking stamps from previous trips to Japan and other major global hubs. How could a man travel the world with a passport from a country that isn't on the map? Suspicious that they were dealing with a highly sophisticated spy, or perhaps a man suffering a mental breakdown, the Japanese authorities detained him. They chose a high-security hotel nearby. 2 armed guards were stationed directly outside his door. The room was on the several stories up, with a single window that offered no ledge and no possibility of escape. He was trapped until they could figure out who or what he really was. The man was exhausted and went to his room, while the authorities took his passport and documents to a secure airport safe to study them further. They wanted to see if the ink was real, if the paper was forged, or if they were holding a visitor from another dimension. The next morning, the guards knocked on the door. There was no answer. When they used the master key to enter, their hearts stopped. The room was perfectly neat. The bed was made. The man's briefcase was gone. The man himself was gone. They checked the window. It was locked from the inside. There was no way a human being could have exited through it without falling to their death. They checked the bathroom, the closets, and even the vents. The room was empty. The guards outside the door swore on their lives that no one had passed them all night. They opened the heavy steel door, but the shelf was bare. The passport from Taured, the mysterious checkbooks, and the strange currency had all vanished into thin air. It was as if the universe had realized a mistake had been made. It was as if a glitch in reality had allowed a man from a parallel timeline to slip through a crack into our world, only for that crack to seal shut again, pulling him and everything he touched back into the void. Did he find his way home? Or is he still wandering the corridors of a world that looks just like ours, but isn't quite right? To this day, the archives of the Tokyo police contain the reports of that July afternoon, a chilling reminder that the world we see on the map might only be one version of the truth. We walk through life assuming we know where we are, but somewhere out there, in a place called Taured, a man might be telling his friends about the strange day he landed in a country called Japan that tried to tell him his home didn't exist.